Hello there. I'm Gloria Felt, and this Leading Out Loud series was born from Take the Lead's Power Tool Champion Awards, which celebrate women leaders who are using their voices and influence and their courage to redefine leadership from the inside out. So, with each one of these conversations, we're joined by one of these incredible Power Tool champion women, and when we do, we'll have a conversation about their power tool in action, what it looks like to embody them in real life, embody these leadership power tools. I created the 9 leadership power tools to help women accelerate their leadership journey. And it's a we have an online course you can enroll in, and they're all in my book, No Excuses: 9 Ways Women Can Change How We Think About Power. And so the purpose of talking about each of these power tools separately is to give you an opportunity to get a sense of how they look, how you embody them in real life, in leadership, and in service to others. So, first of all, before we get started, hello to everybody who's joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. And just let us know in the chat where you're joining from. And in one word, what does truth in leadership mean to you? And we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. Okay. What does truth in leadership mean to you right now? Just put a word in the chat, one word about what that means to you. So I'm really excited about this conversation today because we're going to talk about what it means to wear the shirt. I love all of these leadership power tools, and this one has a very special backstory for me. So it's all about, what do you believe in so much that you would put it on your shirt? What is the value that you hold so dear that you would put it on your shirt and wear that shirt out in public, to the gym, to the grocery store, wherever, because you want to stand in your truth. And even when it's uncomfortable, inconvenient, or costly, you will do that. We're all called to be courageous these days, I believe. And so that's why I'm so excited to have the opportunity to introduce you to a Power Tool champion for Wear the Shirt, which is Power Tool number 6, Tanu Ghosh. Tanu is an incredible woman. She has so many things that she does, and all of them so well. It's really hard for me to condense her bio, but let me give you a real quick intro. But then I'm going to have her talk about herself. Okay, does that sound good? All right. Okay, so Tanu is a transformational executive who she's led global supply chain and manufacturing operations at massive scale for huge, gigantic Fortune 500 companies, $10 billion in operations, tens of thousands of employees, and multi-billion-dollar impact. So that's just for starters. But that's what she's not just known for delivering results, but also for telling the truth inside complex systems about people, processes, power, and responsibility. But again, that's not all. She's also the founder of a nonprofit organization advancing gender parity globally. And she's a leader who understands that truth isn't just personal, it's structural, and it's what you actually do about it. So, Tanu, I want to welcome you, and I want to ask you to start out by sharing, what does it mean to you when you hear that phrase, wear the shirt, not as a power tool, but as a lived leadership practice? Would you share that with us?
Yes, absolutely, Gloria. So, first of all, thank you for having me here. Thank you for considering me as an awardee this year of the Power Tool number 6, Wear the Shirt champion. I'll just do a quick corrections, not necessarily corrections, but adjustments to the bio you spoke about. So the 10 billion, yes, over the period of my career, I have had impact of that much and maybe more in savings and have run those skills programs. The 10,000 employees really are of the corporations that I have worked for in terms of the groups on the spans of which I have control. Right now, I am a senior director at Medtronic, senior director plus actually running their Tempe operations side. So the scale of my team size here, or what I have under my scope here, is total 800 uh, employees, but directly reporting into my food chain, about 580. So I just don't want that to be confused with like the 10,000 employees or something like that. And
Wow.
then also, additionally, what I am very proud of is what you said in the second part of it, which is raising your voice, irrespective of the constraints you might need to operate in. And in that, I do have a few books to my credit, which I have authored. I have authored a book called Beyond #MeToo, which is more on gender rights and gender equality, very close to Take the Lead's mission. And Gloria, that is how we met. I interviewed you
Yes.
for that book. I have also authored some fictions. One was on immigration rights and people stories called From and Other Land. And latest was I authored a book called The Queer Chronicles to try to look into the transgender, LGBTQIA plus uh, stories with a fiction lens. I've also
Mhm.
contributed in multiple anthologies. And then you also mentioned Her Rights, so thank you for doing so. That organization is built to use the power of network for forwarding women and minorities' rights across the world. So, with that, you asked me, what does wearing the shirt mean to me if it was
Mhm.
not a power tool tagline? To me, whether we call it wear the shirt or not, what it means to me is, do you really live your life every day doing something, no matter how big or little it is, for the things you believe in? What you believe in might be very different based on who you are. But if you truly do believe in that, then wearing the shirt to me is, do you live your life meaningfully contributing to that uh, as you go through your days, months, and years?
Mhm. So what's on your shirt?
On my shirt, as you know this, because in my initiation to the Take the Lead leadership, you had an exercise of
Mhm.
writing the shirts, writing up a shirt for yourself. What I did there, and I actually wish I would have printed those T-shirts. I didn't need to. Take the Lead did something very similar later. Was women's rights are human rights, and
Yes.
what that basically means to me, and in a broader scale of things, it's not just women. I truly believe that every human being on the face of this earth does have a right to exist in a way in which they are not discriminated against or prevented from doing things or having access to things because
Mhm.
of their class, caste, gender, orientation, or anything like that, right? Obviously, it's a survival of a fittest and the world where meritocracy thrives, but I do believe in equity very much from the core of my heart. So that's on my shirt.
So I know that, it's one thing when you're speaking on behalf of your nonprofit organization, when you can say exactly what you think and you can wear that shirt. But one of the things I most respect about you is how you also do that in your professional life. And I also know that it requires a great deal of skill and sensitivity to know inside an organization, inside a company, when is the right time to speak up versus when it's the right time to listen. And what's the cost of not telling the truth when you're in a big organization like that? What are your thoughts on that? What experience can you share?
Yeah, so first of all, I have been relatively fortunate, I would say, to have always been existing in workplaces where things were more or less equitable in values and doing the right thing was accepted, right? So, meaning, I only say this because I know what kind of workplaces exist out there, unfortunately. So, I did my grad studies in Cornell University, which was a very pro human rights organization. I worked at the Brookhaven National Laboratories for doing some research for a very short time. Then I worked at Intel, and now I'm at Medtronic. All
Mhm.
these workplaces do value inclusion a lot, no matter in what form or how they have to morph because of what is going on. But in my experience and by their intent, they have valued inclusion very much. But to answer your specific question, irrespective of the workplace and how friendly it is to you or unfriendly it is to you in terms of your values, I have always truly believed that to change a conversation in the room, you have to exist in the room, first of all. So,
Yes.
this is something that sometimes when I try to mentor women, uh, they take it wrongly, saying that, well, I'm being asked to more or fit into something, or I'm not asked to be not myself, or I'm being asked to hide my emotions. The fact is, Gloria, if you do get kicked out of the room, then you change nothing. Then the battle becomes much, much tougher. So, in terms of when to speak up and when to stay silent comes later. First comes, how do you make yourself exist in that room? What do you need to learn? You know, how do
Hmm.
you learn the rules of the game to be able to stay in the game?
Hmm.
And you might say, well, I don't want to play this game. That's okay. But then it will be like swimming against the currents, right? So until we change the conversation enough that there can be a room to suit everyone's uh, individuality, my thought process is, how do we make ourselves ready to exist in this room? What do we need to learn for that, mental work wise and uh, behavior wise, for that? So that will be my answer to your question.
That is such incredibly good advice, Tanu. I think that very often people are afraid. They're afraid of not only telling the truth, but one of my other power tools is embrace controversy. And the fact of the matter is that there's really no way to innovate and create without being willing to engage in those conversations. And so people like you who are willing to open the conversation, speak up when it's time, and speak from your truth, you're the innovators. You're the ones who are able to drive innovation, and I think that that's probably one of the reasons why you have ascended so well in the companies that you have been working for. So I think that is just an incredibly good piece of advice for people to think about, and I would love for people in the chat to just drop something in the chat if you've ever known that truth. You've ever known the truth in a situation, but you were afraid to say it. How do you normalize it? Know that you're not alone. Know that you're not alone, because how many times have you ever brought up an issue or spoken a truth in a meeting and nobody says anything, and then afterward they come to you and they say, "Oh, thank you for saying that." Have you had that happen, Tanu?
Yes, and actually, even before that, on my point of figuring out a way to be persistent and staying in the room, I do want to say, because when I say this, I don't want it to sound like we have it all figured out, right? I have been kicked out of many rooms, and those kickouts have taught me how to do it differently next time so that I get to stay
Mm-hmm.
and then say my truth. So it doesn't come without failure. But I want to make sure that it does take intention, adjustment, and what we call a growth mindset in the lingo of my
Mm-hmm.
world. But really, observe and learn what you need to do to stay in the room. And then you speak your truth in a way that gets your truth heard, but does not get you kicked out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I really hope people will engage in the chat on that and share with each other times that you know that you have spoken your truth and it worked out for you, or times that you spoke your truth and it was hard for you to do, and just share how you overcame the hurdles. It's really helpful to each other to share those kinds of things, because we all deal with them. There's not an organization in the world, whether it's a Fortune 500 company or whether it's a nonprofit organization or a government or entity, whatever it is. If it's your own entrepreneurial business and you have employees, you're going to have those kinds of issues. They will come up. So I want to switch just a little bit and take a slightly different tack here, Tanu. You've driven billions in savings and you've led systems that affect tens of thousands of people. So where does you're the truth seeker? Where does the truth get hardest at that scale? Where does if you're dealing with this huge numbers of people and huge amounts of money, or maybe it doesn't, maybe it's all the same, maybe it doesn't matter the size. I don't know the answer to that, so I really am anxious to hear what you say. Where does the truth get hard at
my
scale?
my opinion is that the scale might change, but the truth, or what are the obstacles in the way of the truth, don't very much, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the first thing in all of this is, obviously there will always be a conflict of intentions. There is going to be some constructive conflict in the system by design. Then one thing that I often come across in the two worlds I try to coexist in, whether that's the nonprofit space or the corporate space, is some very corporate capitalist for business motivations, which come with needing to be a profitable company when your shares are public,
Mhm.
versus some of the things that might seem are more geared towards equity and social service.
Mhm.
So, this, however, doesn't matter the scale, you will run into this no matter how small your organization is, needing to make those decisions. But the biggest issue really is always you will have people who come from a very different place because of who they are and who they have become. And
Mhm.
those issues, or navigating those issues, does not change with the scale. You
Mhm.
have to figure out a way in which you hold on true to what you believe in, but you also learn to work accepting this that other people might not believe in that.
Mhm. 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 So you're really kind of getting into office politics there. And let's face it, people say they don't like politics, but politics is everywhere in any aspect of life in some way or another. And you're right. I thought what you said about you didn't say it in these exact words, but I'm going to paraphrase you, which is that everybody's got their own agenda. And
Correct. And actually, you taught me this, Gloria, on the leadership course. I don't know if you remember, but when I took the course for leadership ambassador, you have something that says embrace the controversy, which you just mentioned. And I heard it said differently. I always heard, like, this is just politics. But the point is, then you have to learn the politics. You can't be
yes,
afraid of it, right? You have to figure it out. You might not like it, but either you have to learn the politics and become good at it yourself, or you have to find someone who can do it for you.
yes,
But it's going to be very hard, and especially as women, I have seen for
yeah,
some reason we have been culturally, socially, doesn't matter which country it is, have been
mhm,
nurtured to think politics is bad and is the man's space, when we actually can be much better at it. I don't even think it's that much of a gender thing. There might be some gender conditioning or physiological uh,
mhm,
guardrails there based on how we react to certain things or not. But let's not, without going into that, I actually do not think anymore that politics is necessarily a bad thing. And I think one of the beauties of the power tool structure, or just in general, anything that teaches women to embrace their power, is to give
mhm.
them the confidence that they can learn it, they can become really good at it. You know,
Right,
so
right.
it's not a dirty word necessarily.
Yeah. And actually, all of the data seems to imply that because of how women have been acculturated, because we have not been the ones in power, because we have been more of the support systems, we have been acculturated. I mean, this is, listen, I always say, it's not hardwired. Nobody's better than anybody else. Women are not better than men are not better than women. But the cultural learning that women have had has given us a kind of ability to read the room, and that is where understanding where people are coming from, the office politics and the all of those kinds of things, that's where women can really excel, when we trust ourselves, when we trust what we're seeing, and we're not afraid to actually name things and deal with them, and it gives us an empathy about where people are coming from that often is not on the official agenda, right? It's not on the official agenda, but sometimes the unofficial agenda is more powerful than the official agenda, and we need to know that. I want to switch gears again here for just a minute, because it just made me think about something. I often have told people that work with me that I'm very manageable. What do I mean by that? What I mean is it's really easy to manage me if you tell me what's going on and tell me, what needs to happen and give me the truth, even if it's difficult to listen to. And so the question I have for you, and that might be helpful to people who are with us today, is how do you create cultures where the truth can travel up, not just down or sideways? How do you create that culture where you're not afraid to speak truth to, as they say, power?
I have some management principles of my own, which I'm obviously trying to build into the team I'm managing right now through all levels of leadership. I learned it at my previous workplace, and then I improvised on it through everything I was exposed to, including your programs, my learnings through her rights, and my personal journey. First of all, it's extremely important to give the people in your team, in your organization, psychological safety. How do you build psychological safety? Psychological safety does not mean you don't hold people accountable. It does
Mhm.
not mean that if they do something wrong, uh, they will not have a consequence. And actually, in my experience, most people are not looking for that. Even though you might get in organizational health and survey some disgruntled comments regarding, hey, I did one mistake and I was written up, I honestly have found again and again that that's not what's driving that. What is driving that is, are you actively role modeling a culture where people can come and tell you what they think is the problem? And when you disagree with them, are you doing your best to explain the reason to them? Now, the point is, this might sound very egalitarian or very idealistic or cliche. It's not that. Yes, many will disagree with you. Many will, no matter how much you explain the reason, still believe for whatever implicit bias, explicit reasons, you are wrong. That's okay. But you role modeling that, I truly believe, builds a culture where you can have transparency up and down. The second thing that is very important, which I have learned in my life by actually working for people who did not role model this, sometimes you learn more from bad things than good things.
Mhm.
I believe that credit should always flow down the food chain and accountability should flow up. Meaning, if you
Mhm.
make a conscious point of
Mhm.
really recognizing any work that's being done under your leadership down to the ground from where it originated, and um, exaggerate that effect, and you make a conscious point of taking accountability no matter where it originated on yourself, it does a lot for creating psychological safety
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
organization. So that those are the two things I would say in this regard, where how do you create a culture where people are comfortable telling their truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then these are my principles. But the third thing is, you always have to work a lot to train your leaders also. If you don't give the tools, if you don't give them the uh, right training, and if you don't select people necessarily who have leadership as a passion, but
Mhm.
just have people in roles because of opportunity, you might end up having a much tougher journey.
Wow. I mean, it's such great advice. I mean, as somebody who's been pretty much a CEO my whole life, it that it my personal experience is working with people like you who are willing and able to say what needs to be said is a great gift because it makes the organization better. It makes me better as a leader to be spoken to in words that are clear and that basically give the unvarnished truth. So thank you so much for that, Tanu. And I think that's another piece of really great advice that you've given people who are with us today. So I'd like to ask people who are here today. And again, hello and thank you so much for coming to Take the Lead's Leading Out Loud. I'm Gloria Felt, co-founder and president of Take the Lead. If you've just joined, and I'm having the great honor and pleasure of interviewing Tanu Ghosh, who is one of our Power Tool champions, champion for Power Tool 6, wear the shirt. She is the truth seeker. So I'd like to ask you to put into the chat, and you can answer with just one word if you want to, or more if you want. What is one truth your organization needs more capacity to hear right now? So just marinate on that for a minute and put your answer in the chat and share with each other. And I think that you can really get some rich learning from that. And we've all encountered situations that are difficult, uncomfortable, perhaps, but those are the situations from which we learn the most. So just we don't want to go on too long, but I do want to take a moment, Tanu, to talk a little bit about the thing that is being talked about more than anything else right now, which is, of course, AI. Right? We're in an era, excuse me, of AI, machine learning, automation, and rapid transformation. I mean, how many emails do you get every day? How many conversations do you get into every day about the impact of AI and what you need to learn and how it's going to change things and jobs it's going to eliminate and all of those? I mean, everything. So, in that sense, truth may feel harder to access, not easier. So, the question I want to ask you is how do you see truth seeking leadership becoming more, not less important as technology accelerates?
Oh, um, Well, I think one of the fundamental challenges that I see with just not just AI, but everything that came preceding is it is becoming harder and harder to separate facts from opinions. And it's also becoming tougher to have objectivity because of all the algorithms in AI. Today, more than anything, your truth will um, be reinforced in a way that you will not be able to figure out when it has drifted from being a truth anymore.
Mhm.
So, to me, then it becomes even more responsible for us to not just be truth tellers, but also truth seekers, as you will,
Ooh.
right?
Mm.
So, it becomes a personal responsibility almost because we went through an era of when information became easy and we could ease out on that responsibility a little bit and have less bandwidth needed to find the truth. But then that has gone now to an extent where you can find a lot of information. But out of that information, what is the truth? You know, remains becomes your responsibility again with the need to invest higher bandwidth. And I think that's even more important today than any time else, so that we don't let a wonderful technological advancement become a detriment to the human race.
Mm. So the question I want to ask people to type into the chat then in response to that is if you share this belief that the AI era requires more humanity, not less, would you please type truth into the chat? I'm really curious to know how people are reacting to this age of AI. So the last thing, Tanu, that I want to zero in on, which of course is the core of Wear the Shirt, is about personal courage and integrity. Um, from my perspective as a leader over now many, many years, to me, those are the two most important elements of leadership: courage and integrity. And to me, honesty is a part of integrity. So really, that's what we're talking about. But sometimes that's the biggest challenge. Can you share a moment when telling the truth cost you something, but not telling it would have cost you even more?
Yes, I mean, definitely. First, let me just make a point here. When we talk integrity, a lot of people confuse it with morality. Morality is subjective, integrity is not, in my opinion.
Mhm,
So
mhm,
it's very important to not confuse those two things. Now, once we have clarity on that, to me, uh, integrity is very, very important to have and to fight for, because to me, otherwise, you lose your value in your own eyes, and that kind of devaluation is very hard to recover from. Now, yes, there has been many times where there have been consequences, and those things will always be around us. Every time, I believe you need to weigh two things. First is, are you fighting a battle or a war? If you are fighting a battle, then it's maybe wiser to bow down to the consequence. It's not a matter of ego, and choose a different battle. If you're
yeah,
fighting a war, then comes the second consideration: is the consequence big enough to impact you in a way that you will not be able to fight a second battle ever? If the
mhm,
second one is right, that means that, well, the consequence will be big enough to get me removed from a country or from a workplace or something, then it becomes a much tougher choice, right? In most cases, you will find yourself somewhere where the first consequence will either rule you out or you will land, yes, for the first, that it's worth fighting, but then, yes, the consequence is big enough, but it can be managed in a way that its impact is reduced on yourself. So in that case, most of my examples have been like that. Like, do I want to write about a topic? Do I want to find a different platform to talk about a topic? If writing about things are becoming very dangerous, then do I have to find a way around? Sometimes it's also, I have been humbled when I have strongly believed in something, and then I have realized that, you know what, maybe the other side does have a point, right? So those kind of adjustments you always have to make. And in my opinion, whether it's social activism or, you know personal relations or career success, uh, you have to be wise. You have to be wise. Doesn't mean you will always win, but
mhm,
it's better to be wise than to be headstrong. And that's a lesson I have learned growing up through my years, right? I have had consequences that were dealt to me in a way that I didn't see them coming. but I'm very grateful for them now, because that in a way taught me a lot. And with every battle you become better, but um, don't fight too many battles. Look for the war. um, yeah.
So, what you're really talking about is actually one of the things that differentiates take the leads leadership development training and coaching from most other programs, which is you're really talking about mindset coming first and coming into the room with you've got a mindset that says, I'm going to listen, I'm going to learn, I'm going to, I'm going to whatever experience it is, if it's positive or negative, I'm going to hear it and I'm going to learn from it. So, that's how it really is how we grow. And you can't learn that like you learn how to make a budget. It really is about the having the integrity of your own beliefs and your own, what you think is important in this world and in the work that you're doing. So with that, I'd like to ask you one final question, and that is, apropos of this whole conversation we've been having about you being the truth seeker and you wear the shirt and you've given great advice about how people can do that in a positive way and in whatever situation they're in. Um, what is the single most important piece of advice that you would give to people who want to be in integrity and want to have that level of courage? What is the single best piece of advice that you'd like to give?
I will give a single best piece of advice, and then I will also say something in addition. If I have to boil everything down to a single thing, I would say that it's mindset, and a very specific kind of mindset, which is persistence. Very often, when we try something and we think it's not going our way, we give up in a way that's not just changing the course, but giving up the goal. But often you don't have to give up the goal, you actually have to change the course on how you are going towards that goal. And I have found that more than talent, luck, anything else, persistence has paid off for me, right? And I don't know, it's not like a universal kind of like new age science area I want to go to, but I have felt that when I have been persistent enough, luck has turned eventually.
Mhm, mhm,
And then the second thing I want to say, you, I believe we're going to go there. Learning these things, right? I can't I cannot not, like I can't stress enough the importance of mentorship and community in this, right?
mhm,
Just this week, I was very privileged on Tuesday to be part of graduation of the first class of the Leadership Initiative (TLI), which is a flagship program under Her Rights, my nonprofit. This was mentoring of girls in seventh grade working with Arizona, a school in Arizona, which does not have the resources many higher end schools have to give the children going there that kind of support in training on how to look for jobs, how to have a leadership mindset, how to network, how to imbibe skills that will make them successful in life beyond the subject matter expertise. And as the women were coming, this very young woman, really same age, my daughter's age, 12 to 13 years old, were coming on stage during the graduation. I remembered when I was teaching their class for the first time. I took a special class on how to network. There were other instructors and speakers and the people who ran the program. They were resistant. They were like angry that they're having to spend time there. They would lose,
mm,
interest in the first 15 minutes. I have to keep on changing to keep them on.
mhm,
Yet when they all graduated, they said something that having someone trying to teach them these things were invaluable. And what stayed with me is the advice that you asked me for one advice and I gave you mine. Soon enough, maybe I will change it to what this 12-year-old said on stage. She was asked to give one piece of advice, and she said her advice is don't give up on yourself and don't give up on others, because someday you might need someone and someone might need you. And I found that's very close to persistence. Don't give up, but it's also persistent in a specific way. Persistence with yourself and with people around you.
mhm,
So I thought that was beautiful, and I have been trying to absorb that since then. But the power through mentorship, through programs, uh, of being able to reach people and motivate people cannot be underestimated. So, if,
Beautiful. That's just
yeah,
wonderful. What that's thank you so much for sharing that story. It's just a great story. So that leads me to want to give you an opportunity to tell people, if you'd like, how to find you, how to find her rights, how to find the program that you were just talking about. What would you how would you like people to find you if they want to learn more?
yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, I am not as challenged on social media as I used to be. My first book promotion video, I posted it upside down. But if I have made improvements from there, I have tagged this rightfully on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me from this post that Gloria has tracked me on, and I'm usually reasonably active on LinkedIn. You can
Mhm.
also go and Google Her Rights, HERRIGHTS, and that will take you to the Her Rights website, which is my nonprofit. And then I also do have my personal website. If you want to find out about my books, you can look them up by my name on Amazon, or I think one of them was in Burns and Nobles, but anyways, it should be pretty easy to search for them. But you can also go to my personal website, which is thoughtsandrights.com. So those are the major ways and easy ways without having to remember URLs and so on.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Tanu. Tanu, thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing all your wisdom. And to people who have joined us, thank you again for joining Take the Leads Leading Out Loud. We do this series frequently, so keep your eye out. Be sure that you're following the organization Take the Lead on LinkedIn and on other social media so you'll know when we're having things. And I really invite you in particular to sign up for our free newsletter that comes out weekly. It's you can do that at our website, which is taketheleadwomen.com, and just find the newsletter and sign up for it, because that will always tell you what we are doing and how you can be involved with it. And I'm going to tell you something really special that's going on right now that I'm going to invite you to learn more about and to become involved if you are interested. We'd love to have you. We are expanding out. We're making Take the Lead available everywhere, and that's the goal for this. We're starting if in Arizona, where this is already getting started, called 50 Women Can Lead the Change. And if you want to be one of a cohort of 50 Women Can Lead the Change, it's the next big initiative that we're doing, that's designed for women who want to co-create the future of leadership wherever you are. So if you are in Arizona, you can just type 50 women in the chat, and we will get in touch with you and we will link you up with what we're doing, because that's already going on. We're building a founding circle, and we can provide more information, and we'll be happy to follow up with all the details. There are lots of good perks also for anybody who wants to join right now. And I thank you, Tanu, for coming to our organizing meeting. And I'm very excited about this. And I also want to say, if you're someplace other than Arizona and you want to start a 50 Women Can Lead the Change group circle where you are, just also I'm going to think about what the easiest way is for you to do this. Type 50 women in the chat and we'll sort it out. Just type 50 women and where you're located. That's what we'll do. And then we'll follow up with you appropriately. Most likely, New York is going to be the next location, and that will be coming in 2026. But we're open to supporting any group that wants to start a 50 Women Can Lead the Change program in your location. So, very much invite you to that. Very much invite you to join the newsletter at taketheleadwomen.com so that you'll always be apprised of everything we're doing here at Take the Lead, which includes our 9 Leadership Power Tools courses, our Power Up conference, which is on Women's Equality Day in August, and you'll just always be up on everything. So thank you so much for joining us. Tanu, thank you so much for wearing the shirt, not just for yourself, but for the systems and the people that your leadership touches. You're truly amazing. And I'm honored to call you not just somebody I know, but to call you friend, and to honor you also as a power tool champion for Take the Lead. So thank you so much. And thanks to everybody for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, everyone.